Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the WorryFree Retirement, with offices in Louisville and Bowling Green. Your host, five-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
Wow. Okay. Okay, Dave. How much you weigh, Slip? And you weighed 168 pounds. You were beautiful. You could have been another Billy Kahn. That skunk we got you for the manager, he brought you along too fast.
It wasn't him, Charlie. It was you. You remember that night in the garden? You came down my dressing room and said, "Kid, this ain't your night. We're going for the price on Wilson." You remember that? This ain't your night. My night, I could have taken Wilson apart. So what happens? He gets the title shot outdoors in a ballpark, and what do I get? A one-way ticket to Palookaville. You was my brother, Charlie. You should have looked out for me a little bit. You should have taken care of me just a little bit so I wouldn't have to take them dives for the short end money.
Well, I had some bets down for you. You saw some money.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
Wow, what a great scene. Marlon Brando, Rod Steiger on the waterfront, and basically he sums up his life. Rod Steiger is basically telling him his life's over as far as a boxer. Marlon Brando responds that he could have been at the ballpark, and instead, maybe this is you. He feels like he's been taken to Palookaville. I could have been something, he says. And maybe you feel like that. Maybe you feel like your manager, in this case it was Rod Steiger that was supposed to be looking after Marlon Brando's career. Maybe you feel like your manager, your financial manager, and maybe the woes as a result of where you are financially, maybe he's blaming somebody else. As we film this show on Tuesday, October 30th, 2018, folks, the stock market, once again, just like 2008, looks like it's on an unpredictable roller coaster ride. And if you're a saver, more than likely, just like many of you who experienced that downturn of more than 40% of your 401k back in 2008, maybe you're feeling a little like Marlon Brando in that famous scene of the movie. Let's cut it again, Aaron. What's he say here at the end?
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
That's right. And we like to say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. Maybe you could have been something, but there's a big difference. You know, in Marlon Brando's case in this scene, his boxing career, his fighting in the ring with his opponents was over. Problem is, assuming you can still fog a mirror and you got money in your wallet or your 401k plan, the fight is still on, folks. This game is not over. But in the end, we've got to admit, even if you're having some financial regrets, you can't go back in time. You can't erase former decisions. All we can do is learn from them. And again, the good news is you're watching the WorryFree Retirement. We got choices today for you. So instead of possibly getting into, as we watch this market tumble around, instead of possibly having another woulda, shoulda, coulda syndrome moment like Marlon Brando here, why don't we dive into something that I learned years ago called the 7 costly mistakes savers are making with their money. Because here's what we're going to learn. Actually, this is the book I wrote in 2010 called Don't Follow the Herd. Now, you got to understand when this book came out, we were coming out of 2008, 2009. Fortunately, most of my clients did not have a lot of money in the market. At that time, and we still are, we were using a lot of fixed indexed annuities, which had no risk. So I wrote this book to try to let people know that, hey, it's not always about rate of return. Sometimes it's more about attacking cost and avoiding risk. So again, rather than lamenting over the losses of 2008 and figuring there's nothing you can do and sitting here and saying, well, here we go again, I guess I'll just have to hang in there, or worse yet, you've pulled all your money off on the sidelines and it's earning, 0.5% or whatever, I've got really good news today, because there is no reason to go through another 2008. We've got options that don't include blindly throwing your money in the market and hoping things work out. And what I'm going to share with you today, and over the next 7 weeks, that's right, over the next 7 episodes, we're going to take each one of these costs, the 7 costly mistakes that I've learned that savers keep making over and over with their money. So over the next 7 weeks, we're going to dive into each cost. Again, we're going to go through the book. By the way, it may not be a bad idea to order this book. It's on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Again, it's called Don't Follow the Herd. It was written by myself, Tony Walker. And if you get this book, I guarantee you're going to say, Tony, this is the easiest financial book I've ever read. It actually makes sense. That's because all I do is work with savers day in and day out. And what I share in this book is ways that you can take control of your money so that you can have a fighting chance. And you realize that it's not always about how much money you make, but how much money you keep. You see, to avoid the woulda, shoulda, coulda, folks, first and foremost, just like Marlon Brando, he thought he had somebody in his corner. He didn't. In fact, in this case, his manager, I think it was even his brother, had sold him out. Well, you, at some point, if you're going to retire, you've got to have somebody in your financial corner. And that manager, that financial manager, hopefully it's somebody like us, is a fiduciary, and they are going to look out for your best interest. Now, it's interesting. Let's kind of just roll the video clip of this again, Aaron. Don't do the audio, but just as they're talking back here, if you watch over this clip, I would encourage you to go to YouTube and Google this clip. You can just kind of go to Marlon Brando in the scene, I could have been somebody or something like that. It'll pop up. It's a great scene. Rod Steiger, again, is trying to get him top billing for these rings, and again, he sells him out, and he starts blaming everybody else out. And instead, Marlon Brando says, basically, you were my manager. You were the one that was supposed to be taking care of me. And at the very end, with Rod Steiger admitting, okay, so it was my fault, now Brando's in big time trouble because the thugs are looking for him. You know Rod Steiger's response to all this? He drops a gun in his lap, and then Brando looks at it like, what's this for? And here's what he says about the plight Brando's in. You better take this because you're probably going to need it. Well, just like last night, I had a gentleman in the office. Again, all I do is see people day in and day out. And this gentleman was very discouraged because his advisor, he felt like, had not been in his corner all these years. He had told me about the plight of the market going up and down. He had told me about how concerned he was, how he would share this with his advisor. And again, folks, there's a lot of great advisors out there. But you may be one of those persons that's sitting there saying, you know, Tony, it does seem like that. Every time I try to talk to somebody in the financial world, they seem more interested in my money than they do in how I feel about my money and protecting it. So Rod Steiger had a responsibility to take care of Brando. He didn't. Brando's washed up and doesn't have anything to do. There is hope, folks. So when I come back, we're going to start a 7-week journey of the 7 costly mistakes people make with their money. And in this next segment, I'm just going to cover mistake number 1. So if you're a saver, worried about your money, you're retired or nearing retirement, this is going to be some really good stuff. We're going to be following along, and don't follow the herd. I'll be right back. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. Annuities. Some people love them and some people hate them. Regardless of how you feel about annuities, one thing's for sure, annuities are the only financial product that can guarantee an income you can never outlive. I'm Tony Walker, and regardless of whether you're thinking about buying an annuity or you have a current annuity that you would like me to review, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Since 9/11, we've written over 2,500 annuities, and we can help you by getting started now.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
Again, if you're just now joining us, we're covering one of my books, Don't Follow the Herd, which was actually published in 2010, but it took me about a year and a half to put this book together. I started working on the book because, unfortunately, after the tragic events of the downturn of 2008 and people's money going out the back door and 401ks turning into 201ks, I felt like, wait a minute, there are a lot of other things you can do besides fighting it out with Wall Street trying to make money. There's all kinds of things savers can do. So what we did is we took 7 of the most common mistakes. I put them in this book, Don't Follow the Herd. And then for the next 7 weeks, this will be week 1 of this continuing saga of, I could have been somebody, and avoiding the woulda, shoulda, couldas. We're going to show you how to take control of your money. The first mistake we're going to cover here, let's go full screen with this, Aaron, just so we can spell it out. The first common mistake that savers make on their money is paying taxes on the same dollar more than once. Paying taxes on the same dollar more than once. So, folks, you're going to have to really watch this. This is going to get a little complicated, but I think if you'll just take the next 10 minutes or so and really kind of focus on what I'm saying, this is going to really help you understand one of the ways financial institutions make so much money on your money. So we first start off with there really are only 2 ways that you can hold money. In other words, for tax purposes, there's what's called a non-qualified account. This would be an example of money you've already paid taxes on, and you invest that money in investments that create taxable income. And we're going to dive into that example in just a second. The second thing you can do is invest in qualified accounts. A qualified account is an account that the government has deemed qualified for certain specific tax treatment. For instance, your 401k plan is a qualified account, meaning you can put money in pre-tax and then you pay the taxes later. A Roth IRA is a qualified account. The government tracks that and it says if you want to pay the taxes now, you can pay them later. Again, we'll get into more details on this on the coming shows, but non-qualified and qualified accounts. So when we say paying taxes on the same dollar over and over again or more than once, you might say, well, wait a minute, Tony. If I'm in a qualified account, such as a 401k, I don't pay taxes on that over and over. I pay taxes when I take it out, correct? And I would say, actually, that is correct. What we're talking about are what we refer to as non-qualified accounts. A gentleman came in last night and he had quite a bit of stock in one company. Now, this stock was granted to him by his employer. He stayed there and worked and they kept giving him stock, and the stock was basically what's called a non-qualified stock, and it was after tax. Now, this stock created a nice little dividend. A dividend is basically a return of profits from a stock or a company. Many of you get dividends from mutual funds and stocks. You might get interest from a CD. We could use this in the same example we're getting ready to talk about, although it hasn't been as bad because interest rates have been so low on CDs, but you'll get the gist in just a second. So the gentleman's dilemma was this. He said, Tony, I got all this money in this one stock that I've had over the years. It's actually going down in value, but I like the dividend. And I said, oh, that's nice. I said, by the way, what have you been doing with those dividends all these years? He's had this stock a long time. And he said, well, I've just been reinvesting it. Isn't that what I'm supposed to do? I don't need the money. And I said, okay, and what happens to the dividends? And he says, well, the dividends buy more shares of stock. And I say, that's right. And if we were in a perfect world and we were in a perfect tax environment, there would be no problems with this. But he said, Tony, the problem is, even though this account's going down, I don't know if I want to lose my dividends, so I'm not going to sell the stock. I'm worried sick because the stock's going down. And then if I sell the stock, I got capital gains. And I said, so what are you going to do? And he said, I have no idea. And see, that's a problem with money, folks. You have to have some sort of game plan with your money. The problem is we've got 4 types of financial institutions out there. And in our book, this is on, actually, I'm kind of reading this. Aaron and I talked about this. I think what I'm going to do is cover this in mistake number 2. But basically, those 4 institutions we got to talk about are the government, Wall Street, insurance companies, and banks. So in one of our next episodes, we're going to talk about how much money they make on your money. And you got to think about being Marlon Brando. You think the fight's over and it's not. There still should be some fight left in you. And even if you're retired, you realize you got to climb in that financial ring and you got to do business with these 4 institutions. You're not going to get out of the taxes. You still are going to have to pay insurance premiums. Wall Street has risk and fees associated with what they do, and the banks are either going to charge you interest or possibly not pay you enough interest. Plus, in this example we're using, even if your money's doing well, the government may tax it over and over. So here's what I did. We're going to go full screen here, and this is the part, I know some of you have said, Tony, I like to watch the show while I'm washing dishes. I like to watch the show while I'm vacuuming. I like to do it intermittently while I'm taking out the trash or taking the dog out for a walk. Don't do that, please, under this one. Relax, sit down, record, DVR the show right now or whatever, because this is really good stuff. What I'm going to show full screen here. Okay, Aaron, so let me set the stage before we go full screen. This particular person, we're going to assume, has $300,000 of what we call non-qualified assets, okay? The money's already been taxed. Remember our costly mistake, paying taxes on the same dollar over and over. Not good, all right? So we're going to imagine that the dividend is 3%, all right? So the 3% dividend in scenario number one, let's go ahead and go full screen here, Aaron. You'll see this, account number one, we're imagining that the dividend is reinvested. In other words, it's compounding. So let's just go to year one. So assuming 3%, we add $300,000 and $9,000, that's $309,000. EOY there says that means end of year value. Now notice, assuming they're in a 25% tax bracket, that dividend of $9,000, it's called a 1099, is going to hit your tax return. Now, you may not think you pay any taxes on it or whatever. You do. The tax bracket depends on how much other income you have. But in this case, again, 25%. So, but you said reinvest the dividends. You don't have $2,250 to pay in taxes. That's what the government wants. So where do you get that money? You either take it out of your pocket or you take it out of another investment account. Now, let's slide over to account two. Tony, what's that strategy? This is called our flat tax strategy. Pretty cool, isn't it? I know the government has talked about flat taxes. We got it covered. Here we go. So what we do in this case, we make a conscious decision. We're in the ring fighting it out. We got all these taxes. We got these dividends. And we got a choice. We could let them reinvest, or we could avoid a woulda, shoulda, coulda, and we could take that dividend out in our pocket. Now, what we would do with that, that's why we need to meet. I can help you with that, but just bear with me a second. We're just talking about taxes here. So in this case, we took the $9,000, we put it in our pocket. We're still going to get a 1099, and if you see under account number two, you still owe $2,250 in taxes. So there hasn't been any tax savings yet. Let's go to year two. At the end of year two, under account one, it's worth $318,270, right? It's compounding at 3%. Now look at what's happening to the tax, though. You got to look at this very carefully. Last year's tax under strategy one was $2,250. This year, it's $2,318. You say, why'd the tax go up, Tony? Because the taxes are on the total dividend. The total dividend went up because you got more money. See what's going on? But now you got to come up with extra money because the tax just went up. Now slide over to account two. We've only got $300,000 because we took the $9,000 out and did something else with it. And this case, our tax is flattened. It's only $2,250. And notice now under tax savings, this is where we bring in the calculation of lost opportunity costs. By the way, folks, people sometimes don't understand the background and training. This is the kind of macroeconomic stuff I've trained with over the years. This is stuff that most advisors wouldn't even have a clue what we're talking about either. They'd be just as clueless as you are right now. But the problem is, it's a real problem. I'm not making this stuff up. This is what's happening to your money. And we haven't even added fees onto this. Can you imagine if you're with somebody and you're paying 1.5% in fees? We've got to figure out those opportunity costs. I'll get into that in another show. But what we notice here is the difference in taxes is $68 extra taxes, assuming you're making 5% in some account out there. Let's say your best account, that's how you use opportunity cost. Your best account, we put 5% on $68, your total tax is $71 because you lost money. Now, what's the result of this? Let's speed forward here. Let's fast forward, and let's say you just did this for 30 years, okay? You'll notice under account one, the tax in year 30 has grown to $5,302. The tax in year 30 under account two is $2,250. And you say, why is that, Tony? Remember, the account we're assuming hasn't grown because we've pulled all the dividends out and moved those into other places. So our tax has been flat all these years. You slide over and look at the tax savings because we've had all that money in our pocket, assuming we know how to do our planning, assume we've got a good manager in our corner that's helping us fight these opponents. The tax savings over 30 years to you is over $67 $6,000. Now, folks, I don't know about you, but this is the kind of stuff that a good financial manager can help you with. And if you feel like nobody's even talking to me about this stuff, maybe it's time to find a new manager. Or worse yet, if you're out there boxing along by yourself, you definitely need somebody like us in your corner. Here's how we can help you. It's really easy. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, click on that Let's Get Started button, and what will happen is that'll go to our office. You and I will either talk by phone or meet in person at either our Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky office. After that, we'll put together a plan, a written game plan. We'll have a second meeting. We'll give you the information. I'll share with you my 34 years of knowledge in the financial trenches. And best of all, there's no pressure to do anything. You can take it, research it. If you want to move forward, we'd be happy with all the implementation of our game plan. So take advantage of that now. Right now, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. All of your information sent to us is completely confidential. Well, does the Bible say anything about woulda, shoulda, coulda? Oh my gosh, you're talking about woulda, shoulda, coulda. The Bible's full of it, but guess what? I got to get me another cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Tired of getting up every day and heading off to work with no end in sight? I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and I've helped lots of people retire much sooner than they ever thought possible, and maybe I can help you do the same.
If you're over the age of 50 and have at least $250,000 to invest, schedule your free meeting with Tony to see if you can retire sooner than you think. Simply log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Are you retired or retiring soon? Can you afford for your money to take a hit with the stock market being so volatile these days? Nobody can time the market, but having a retirement game plan with Tony Walker Financial gives you peace of mind and sleep insurance. Learn how to prevent losses in your retirement accounts and plan your retirement around an income you can never outlive. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com today to schedule a personal meeting with Tony to secure your hard-earned money. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Another good cup of coffee on this beautiful morning in Louisville, Kentucky. And our theme today has been woulda, shoulda, coulda. And in my practice, one of the most common themes I encounter is people coming into our offices for the first time and they want me to look at their stuff. And really what they're asking is, Tony, over all these years, I know I've made some mistakes, but how am I really doing? You know, I'm 60 years of age or whatever. And what they're really, again, admitting is, and it's fine, you can't go back in time. Do I have enough money to make it in retirement? And how can I avoid these mistakes that you keep talking about? They're really wanting me to affirm that everything's going to be all right in retirement. And while I'm pretty good at what I do, I must admit that there is only so much I can do. Now, what I can do is help you forget the past of whatever mistakes you might have made, and let's deal with the present. The idea is to protect more and more of your money as you get older. Savers want to do that. They do that by reducing costs, by earning reasonable rates of return, by setting up programs that include mailbox money for life, minimizing fees. This is the way of the saver, and this is what the advisor who's supposedly in your corner is supposed to be doing. It's kind of like Marlon Brando. Again, he's asking, why weren't you in my corner? You know, he was expecting that. So you and I sometimes go out here and we're trying to fight the fight. That's what we've been talking about today, getting in the ring with the financial world and trying to make the most of what we've got. The problem is God, through Christ and His Spirit, wants to fight this fight for you. Now, how does He do this? In that scene with Marlon Brando, it's interesting that he really doesn't ever get mad at his brother for selling him out. He actually even shows a little bit of forgiveness. He kind of just nonchalantly goes, okay, you know, I wished I could have been something, but he really doesn't get on the brother. It's interesting. Again, you ought to watch that scene. And this is the same with God. You see, the power of forgiveness gives us the ability to not go back and keep thinking woulda, shoulda, coulda. You see, if you keep going back to the past, that's right in the devil's playbook. I'm telling you, he wants you to be full of regrets and not have any confidence at all. In fact, he'd rather you just throw in the towel. God's not like that, though. In fact, He says by having faith, not blind faith, we're going to talk about that in one of our shows, but having faith that you can succeed. Now, let's turn to chapter 17 of Luke, Aaron. As we turn to Luke 17, there's an interesting encounter with Jesus and his disciples. He's been teaching this meaning of forgiveness, and no matter what somebody's done to you, he's basically saying you're going to have to forgive them. Now, what's interesting in verse 5, the apostles say, increase our faith. That was their only response. In other words, they knew that they were of little faith. Now, your faith, my faith, every day is going to be tested. You can bank on that. And we know that deep down, really, we got the ability to fight some fights, but sometimes we get tired. Sometimes we're like Marlon Brando, and we just know we're past our prime. We can't keep fighting. But we shouldn't get discouraged because we've got God in our corner. No matter how our intentions can be weak, it doesn't matter. What Paul would say, and he said the same thing in Timothy. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 12, and he says, fight the good fight of faith, take hold of the eternal life to which you were called. And you would say, well, Tony, what does that faith look like? If we slide over to verse 18, it simply says, listen to this, instruct them to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share. And then finally in verse 19, storing up for themselves the treasure of a good foundation for the future so that they may take hold of that which is life indeed. Now that's what I would call money you can take to the bank. Well, how about you? You're sitting there saying, Tony, yeah, that all sounds well and good, but I got to deal with today. I don't feel like anybody's in my corner, and I agree. I need some help. Maybe you're getting ready to retire. Maybe you're at a job you're tired of working at. Maybe you've got statements you're getting from your broker and you don't understand them. Maybe you're worried about running out of money and you want to learn more about this mailbox money I keep talking about. The good news is I'm here to help. It's very easy to contact us. All you do is go to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Again, all of the information you submit at TonyWalkerFinancial.com stays within our organization. It is kept strictly confidential. We can either meet over the phone, I can meet with you in person here in Bowling Green or Louisville, Kentucky. It's your call. But log on now, take control of your finances, do it today, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's program. I've enjoyed being with you. Remember, next week on the show, we're going to be talking about mistake number 2 and how you can get more control of your money. But you remember, between now and next time, if all else fails, you be worry-free. Make it a good one.
Thank you for watching the Worry-Free Retirement with Tony Walker. If you need a safe and simple game plan for your retirement, log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and schedule a free, no-obligation meeting with Tony.